Thank you for joining us for a State of the Stitch People address. We are so excited to share so very many things with you. I made a whole slideshow. It feels very fancy, and we've just got a lot of announcements that we want to share with you because we've always enjoyed community input and keeping you all in the loop and getting your feedback, getting your ideas, getting your thoughts. So here we are to sort of illustrate and share some of our behind the scenes stuff. Here we go. So we're giving our very fancy formal address. I specifically wore a zip-up hoodie so it wouldn't feel formal. For some reason, I just liked the idea of having a State of the Union address, Stitch People style. And the rest of this hour is going to be just a brief overview of the state of Stitch People, where we've been, how it started, where we are, how we got here, and more importantly and most excitingly, where we're going. That's what we're excited to share with you. So, how it started. As you know, first of all, I just want to double check on the live feed that the slides are coming through okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So,
looking good.
As many of you know, where Stitch People started was with portraits. It was something that I started doing. People would send in their photos. I would stitch them and give them away, as many of you have now done. We started to notice across social media that people would pin our photos to Pinterest and share our photos and say, oh my gosh, I'd love to learn how to do this. And it was like, all right, we can teach you. I'll show you how. So we wrote the book on how to make your own cross-stitch family portraits. And Spencer was sort of the mastermind on getting the word out about it, running, ads on Facebook to let people know it existed and getting us on Pinterest. And I kind of stayed behind the scenes, just plowing away at pattern making. And after the first book was released, which we never had plans for more than just do-it-yourself Stitch People. It was just supposed to be how I've gone about making these portraits and teaching you how to do it too. And just after making hundreds and hundreds of these, what pitfalls to avoid and how to plan ahead and just by what's worked for me. It's certainly not the only way. It's not even necessarily the best way, but hopefully learning from my experience could save you a bunch of time. That was always kind of the idea. And then Spencer, I believe it was your idea to start the Stitch People community on Facebook where we could gather and talk and share ideas and get feedback and input. And everybody said, hey, we want farm animals. And okay, so we made farm animals. And it was like, hey, we need military stuff. Okay, we did the military. Hey, we need, doctors and firefighters. So we did occupations and hobbies. And wouldn't you know it, sooner rather than later, within a few years, we had this small business that allowed us to eventually both quit our jobs. It took some years before we started doing Stitch People full time. But eventually, that Facebook community became our source of connection and information with all of you wonderful people and all of your extraordinary brilliance and
extraordinary.
It's just
brilliance.
Wonderful, and it's become my favorite part of Stitch People has been watching the community grow. And I don't mean the number; I mean everybody individually. Like when people from, they'll post their first portrait and then their most recent portrait, or they'll post their first attempt at cross-stitching and get such great feedback. And to see people's creativity get ignited, or in some cases reignited, to see people start to go out on a limb and make new choices has been unbelievably inspiring to me. Cross-stitch is something I really enjoy. It is one of many things I really enjoy. And the thread that I'm seeing, especially in the DIY mix and match portraits that everybody creates, is what really lights me up is to see people get lit up. It's to see people come up with new ideas. And I always joke, because I have a music degree, but the, variations on a theme, you'll have Mozart or, somebody will write a little melody and then variations on a theme. And you see so many people just creating and creating and creating. So what started as just portraits and then went into patterns has become this extraordinary, wonderful community. And that is something that we are both really honored to be a part of and to sort of be ushering into, new ideas and new things as you ask for them. So where are we now? We have a huge library. We often get requests from people, when are you going to do whatever patterns? And it's like, we did them 2 years ago. They're on the website. Go, knock yourself out. We have so many pattern collections that we're really starting to get very, very niche with the mix and match do-it-yourself patterns that we continue to extrapolate. And, do you need some runners? Do you need some traditional attire from the Czech Republic? Do you need marching band? That was those are a couple of our most recent ones. So we were realizing that we have this huge library, and there comes a point where we're getting so niche that it's just only serving, a handful of people here or there. So one thing that we have experienced again is as we've been growing and growing, up top are some new illustrations of our whole team. It's me and Spencer, Teresa, Julie, and Jen, Nancy, Hillary, and Virginia. That's the size of our Stitch People community, or our Stitch People team. And then below, we've got our Stitch People community, which is approaching 11,000 members. So on the one hand, our numbers are growing, and on the other hand, the patterns that we've been making are serving a fewer and fewer number of this growing audience, because how many of us need, I was a drum major in high school, so I probably would have needed those marching band patterns, but how many of us need the marching band patterns, right? So one thing that has been really interesting with our growing community and just growing customer base at large has been to get to know all of you better and to understand, for lack of a better term, it's a businessy lingo that I don't love, but we're really wrapping our head around the demographics of Stitch People fans and sort of who we're serving and what makes the majority of our community sort of tick. And so with all of this swimming around, we're growing, we're niching down on patterns. As our team has grown, we're realizing we've had some processes in the back end that we've needed to address and fix, because when it was just me and Spencer, we just, you want to do whatever patterns next? Sure. And I'd work on it. And then one day when it was finished, I'd say, hey, I have a new PDF. And Spencer would make a product page and start running ads for it. And it was like, okay, what next? And then when we added Teresa and Julian back in 2017, Teresa sort of has helped us with our logistical end for a long time. And Julian sort of helped design assist for a long time. And it operated basically the same way. Hey, everybody, what do you want to do next? And then Teresa and Spencer together would work on the product page and all that. But now that we have a bigger team and we work occasionally with other contractors and freelancers as well, we've realized, okay, we need to get our ducks in a row and ask some tough questions to get organized. We've had to clean up our processes. And that has been really time consuming for anyone who has worked at a startup before or a small business who doesn't have their act together and needs to get their act together.
Wow.
We've been...
It's been crazy.
It's like a tsunami of ketchup. And I posted to Instagram Reels, my personal one, a week ago. It's that little sound clip of I'm just now asking myself internally in quite a worried way whether I might have made an error, because that day I was reassessing kind of the final steps of a file organization project that's taken us a few months, where we've just been going through 10 years of files with Stitch People, getting our naming consistent, getting our folders consistent, because we've all been using our own systems. It's things like that just take a massive amount of time on the back end. So we've been over here since probably early November of last year is when it really hit us that okay, we need to decide what's going on here. And we've been asking ourselves some of these tough questions. What do we want? Who even are we? Where are we going? Do we want to grow? What's the point? What's the why? So we've had a few breakthroughs, and that's why we're having this chat with you all, because we're excited to share sort of our vision of the big questions. Who is Stitch People? What do we do? Why do we do it? When and where and how do we do it? Of course, we're Stitch People, and one of the most exciting things we're excited to share with you is our core values, which we've really talked and thought a lot about. We've involved our team in talking about what makes Stitch People who we are. We're Stitch People, but what does that mean? Our what is that we do cross-stitch portraits. It's that simple. We've been inspired by companies like Orville Redenbacher. They do popcorn. It's very straightforward. When you know what you're about, you have an easier time doing it, right? What's the point? What was Disney's? Is to make magic or something like that. It's very dreamy. For us, we want to inspire limitless creativity. That's why we mentioned that at the start. To us, that's the point. The point isn't cross-stitching. Even though that's what we do, there's a bigger why behind it that we're passionate about. It's to inspire people to make something, to give something, to create an heirloom that will be appreciated in their family for generations, to inspire their own personal creativity, to inspire the creativity of their loved ones and generations to come. That's what it's about. When a lot of these changes are going to start to happen now, and especially into the summer, as well as at the start of 2023, we'll be kicking off a lot of really cool new things that we're about to tell you. And where this has been a huge discussion, because as we've grappled with what Stitch People is, who Stitch People is, what we do and offer, well, if we go beyond cross-stitch portraits, that's going beyond Stitch People. So do we start at something else? Do we do more with cross-stitch? How do we grow beyond mix and match cross-stitch family portraits? And how do we do that? So we've decided that Stitch People as a brand is going to stay exactly what it is, but we might be developing some sub-brands kind of by Stitch People. That everything you know as Stitch People today is going to be, Stitch People, do-it-yourself Stitch People backgrounds, Stitch People weddings. If it starts with Stitch People, it's a mix and match, do-it-yourself family portrait offering. If it's something else by Stitch People, it might not be as traditional as we've been in the past few years. Like some of you have seen our Freddie Meowcurie. We have a little cat portrait. It's about this big, about 5 inches by 5 inches, and it's just a bust of a cat that looks like Freddie Mercury, and we named him Freddie Meowcurie. So that, for example, would be like Freddie Meowcurie by Stitch People. So
or like the chakra mandalas.
Or the chakra mandalas. We have a little booklet
which was an earlier product.
just because I wanted to try something new. So as we expand some other offerings, it's all going to be by Stitch People and at stitchpeople.com, so it's not confusing, but we're going to do our best to differentiate what is the do-it-yourself family portraits and what is other stuff. So we are going to tell you more specifically right now about our core values and then how we're going to go about accomplishing some of our goals. So this is really exciting for me because I'm just so thrilled about what Stitch People is about. So our number one core value should be no surprise by now. We inspire limitless creativity. It is our number one core value. We encourage individual ability and creativity. We live lives of creativity. We follow our dreams and passions. And because nothing is impossible, we use our imaginations and rely on teamwork, teaching, and group unity to take risks. So, if nothing else, we want that to be our guiding light for all of our decisions. Our next core value, we have 5. Our second is that we are a kind community. It is not lost on us that Stitch People is what it is because of the community, because of all of you who participate, who encourage one another, who share freely. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. So second to the most crowning jewel of inspiring limitless creativity is that we are a kind community. We are real and genuine and authentic. We give each other the benefit of the doubt. We are self-aware, respectful, and full of love. And with wholeheartedness, we offer each other grace and so much encouragement. I mean, there are so many examples in the community of this. People not feeling confident about something, who need a pattern or who need some help, who need some feedback, and people just spill encouragement and help. It's wonderful. It is extraordinary. Flood, yes.
It's always
great.
An outpouring of love and kindness. It's wonderful.
It's the best. You're all just the best. So number 3, we pursue joy. So we are enthusiastic, fun, tenacious, open, and empowering. We love to laugh. We let joy drive our choices, and we follow wherever that joy leads. I remember hearing a story from somebody who had joined the Stitch People community, and that's the familiar refrain of a lot of us. We're like, oh, I learned to cross stitch as a kid and my mom and grandma, and then, put it down for 20 years. And now that I'm a young mom and picking something up, anyway, she picked up cross stitching. She found Stitch People and started making portraits. And it actually, I think, ultimately led her out of cross stitch. She kind of said it reminded me, it sort of woke her up and reminded her of other things that had brought her joy, and she got back into a line of work that she had really enjoyed before having kids, and she was living her best life because she felt like Stitch People sort of woke her up creatively, and at the end of the day, she pursued something else that brought her even more joy than Stitch People, and I was not bummed at all to hear that. I was like, great, throw that book in the trash, go do what you love and what lights you up. So pursuing joy is really, really important to us, as you can see. I'm getting all nerdy about it. Number 4, we embrace humanity. So we are full of compassion, so we help first. With honesty and integrity, we try to do the right thing. Respecting every individual, we do our best to remain fair and stay supportive, while also being thoughtful of our own needs and boundaries. We are flexible with life's ebbs and flows, meaning in both our lives and the lives of others. And I think the Stitch People community does a really good job of embracing this core value. I don't think it's too far off of being pretty obvious. You know, people run into issues in life and things come up and you don't meet deadlines that you hope to, or you don't get a portrait out when you meant to. And, you know, we've all got those cross-stitch projects that have been lingering for 20 years, and that's okay because life happens and we embrace that. It's good. We have patience for that in each other and in ourselves, and have hard conversations when needed, and have encouraging conversations when needed, and that's what we're about. Our last core value is that we go with gumption. This was one, Spencer came up with this phrase, that mistakes are encouraged. That's one thing that we find a lot of people have feedback for us. They'll write in and say, you know, it never occurred to me that I could change a color in my cross-stitch pattern. And yes, you can. Yes, you can and should. Because A, do what lights you up, what brings you joy, that inspires your creativity. But also, try something. Try a new stitch. If it stinks, throw it away. Pick it out. It doesn't matter. Mistakes are encouraged. Mm-hmm. If you're too afraid of making a mistake, then you're not going to take the risk to try. So we always want everyone to feel, you know, just kind of that, you know, a kid at a pool cannonballing into the deep end. That who knows if it's going to be cold water. You're going to have to flail to the top to get your air. But hey, at least it was a fun time. So we lean into growth, excellence, and self-improvement, but based on the individual definitions of what growth, excellence, self-improvement are. Because that means something different to every single person. So we like to talk about, yes, excellence, yes, growth, yes, self-improvement, but not by anybody else's standard but your own. For some people, getting out of the house and going to have an adventure is growth. For some people who are on the go all the time, growth is actually staying home and being still. So based on whatever it is for you, that's what we're into. And when we work, which is not all the time, we work hard. We cheer on individual initiative. We are humbly confident. And we know that we all succeed when one of us succeeds, and we jump in that deep end. So those are our core values. That's what Stitch People is about, and it feels really good to be able to know and to be able to say it. And that's why we've just wanted to share it with you and say, hey, we really hope these resonate with you too, because that's what we're about, and you're here in this community that you've all helped build. Here we all are, you know what I mean? I'm blabbing, you have anything to add?
You're good.
I tend to blab. So the future of Stitch People. I love GIFs, guys. If it doesn't make you laugh, what's the point, right?
And I love Doc Brown, so...
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't love Doc Brown?
I've always dreamed of seeing the future. So the future is, as you might have gathered, a bit of a zoom out, because with our patterns, we've been really, really zooming in and realizing that this is not serving the majority of our audience, and we're feeling like we're getting to know you better and better and better and wanting to serve you more and more and more. So one thing we've experienced over the last couple years is the fact that Stitch People has made, you know, it started with just me and Spencer. I'm Lizzie, I'm the creator of Stitch People, blah, blah, blah. But over the past few years, Stitch People has really taken on a personality as its own brand that's bigger than me. That's bigger than me, its creator, especially as we have a team. Julian helps design patterns. Hillary helps design patterns. We've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen helping to make this thing work. So we're realizing that this is bigger than me. And while I do feel, you know, like mom a little bit, just making sure, you know, our little baby is growing up and going off to college and needs to make its own friends and live its own life, and that's okay. I will stay home and hope it calls. It being Stitch People, not an amorphous humanoid, but so that's just one thing that is interesting to realize, and it's also actually exciting for us. So one of the ways, we're sort of onto the how slide, one of the ways that we're zooming out from just me is the Spring Fling. You may have seen us starting to announce on Instagram, our Spring Fling is coming up May 12th, 13th, and 14th. 3 days of classes, and we have 3 designers at Stitch People. So I will be one of the instructors, but we're also going to have Julian, who's been the kind of next most primary Stitch People designer, if not even more than me, since 2017, teach you about how to design your portraits. We're going to have Hillary as well. Hillary's a whiz on some software apps. And we get a lot of questions about, what tools do you use to design your stuff. So Hillary's going to teach us a lot about that. Julian's going to teach us about designing, and I'm going to teach about some stitching techniques. So you're going to get to know more of the Stitch People team at the Spring Fling. We are also going to be launching a Stitch People Ambassadors program, and we're fleshing out the details of what that's going to look like. We're going to start taking applications. The plan is currently on Stitch People Day at the end of September so that we can launch our Stitch People Ambassador program beginning of 2023. But we want to have more of you, super fans, super stitchers from the community, be able to represent Stitch People in a more official capacity. And that's something that we're really, really excited about because I get bored with myself. So certainly you do too. And the more faces we have, I think the more fun we're going to have. So another thing that we are zooming out on is sort of like we said, we started with portraits, we went to patterns, and it has grown into this community. And we're really going to lean into this community emphasis. So something else we're launching is Stitch People memberships. We, again, are fleshing out details. That's going to launch this summer as opposed to next year. This summer, we're going to start offering Stitch People memberships, and that's going to be like a low monthly subscription where, discounts to the store, special classes and events throughout the month, a pattern, every month, this kind of a thing. So we want to just continue to provide you as much value as possible. So we're going to try and do that with memberships. We're going to have a couple tiers, like a basic and a VIP. And as a side note, attendees of the Spring Fling will get early access to the memberships. We will be running the memberships for a couple months before we open it up to the general public. So that's just a little incentive if you're on the fence about the Spring Fling. Definitely join us in May for that because you'll have first access this summer to memberships. So keep an eye out. But another way we are having a community emphasis is we're going to be running a community-driven stitch-along in 2023. So again, more is going to come out about that probably around Stitch People Day, end of September, but we want to get you involved in helping us to create a stitch-along by the community for the community. We want to communicate with you more. We're working on a couple different avenues for that. We're beta testing some like texting where I've got a group of people that I've been texting with who are Stitch People folks. I think some of you are probably here. Hello, my friends. And for those of you who are interested in that, we're going to be rolling that out more and more and more. We've got Spencer's going to be starting to communicate more via email, newsletters, things like that. We're going to kind of amp up the ante there and just be in touch with you more. Yeah, we've done the podcast. If you're not listening, you really should. I'm telling you, all of you are amazing. And
every episode blows me away.
Yeah, they're all so different, and it's so cool that, they all come down to, so when did you start cross-stitching, and tell us about Stitch People, but at the same time, it's Jessica, who goes to summer camp with her family, and she's a middle school teacher, and she does Stitch People. Or, I don't know if Amanda's episode has dropped, but, she's from, I think, Colombia, and she immigrated to the U.S., and da-da-da-da, but she does Stitch People. Or Annie, who's like a voiceover artist, and she makes a living doing voiceover, and she makes portraits for people in her community and spots them around town, and, it's just so fun. So please check out stitchpeel.com/podcast if you haven't listened. It's really great and fun to listen to. We're doing a podcast stitch along as well, and we're about halfway through, so you can still jump in and catch up. It's just a little we've got 24 motifs for the 24 episode season that we're releasing, and would love to have you join anytime. Another way we are zooming out into the future is with, like I mentioned, pattern variety. So our Occupations and Hobbies 2 release, we tried for the first time breaking what would have been just a book available physically and digitally. We broke that down into chapter sections, and it is only available right now digitally, even the full book. Production costs are so high and shipping costs are so high right now with inflation and life. We're not sure if we're going to offer it physical. There's no current plans, but we're going to be kind of polling the audience and keeping an eye on prices, and we'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. But the biggest thing there is breaking it down into sections, because we get that a lot, I don't want to buy the whole Occupations Hobbies book, I just want instruments or that kind of thing. So we're going to start breaking down existing books into more sections so that they're a little more customizable to exactly what you need. We are also going to be launching in 2023 subscriptions as far as sort of series are concerned. So I'll drop a little hint. I'm obsessed with our Freddie Mercury portrait. I think it's hilarious. And that's an example of we're going to be doing more like cats as celebrities portraits. And so we'll do like one a month of those and do like Marilyn Monroe and the likes, and it'll be hilarious and fun. And so instead of adding more and more and more minutia to the kind of do-it-yourself family portrait library, we're going to be zooming out a little and doing sort of subgenres and doing some more with the chakra mandalas and spiritual series and doing more subscriptions and sort of, again, variations on a theme of Stitch People, doing more of the, literary, public domain, done-for-you scenes so that, they're to cater to beyond just the mix and match family portrait community.
Yeah, for those of you who have the Pride and Prejudice patterns.
Yeah, more like that.
In that genre and style. Yeah.
Which we're really excited about. And hopefully we'll just, add more and more fun things for all of us to do together. So on a personal note, I know sometimes in podcasts or whatever, I've been talking about some of our side projects. One, we've got two, Spencer and I met doing community theater. He's a great actor, and especially with voiceover. I do, we both started in theater, but I've done some voiceover, but I really enjoy TV and film. And both of our dream would be to do more by way of performing in the arts. That's kind of our capital D dream. So we've started some side projects to try and pursue some of these things, and I've mentioned them a few times, so I thought I'd just throw this in there and give you some updates. On the left side, we've got a pitch for a TV show idea that we have that's sort of about creativity and makers. This is a shot from an interview I did with up just in Salt Lake. There's a violin making school, the Violin Making School America, and we emailed them and said, hey, can we come do some interviews and get some footage? And we've cut that into a sizzle reel, and we're hoping to pitch that to some networks. That's sort of Stitch People adjacent, because it would just be me being me, like hosting a show about creativity and artisanship and things like that. Like I said, I get really excited about people making stuff. So it seems like a really natural fit, and we're really, really excited about the potential of that one there on the left. And then on the right, back in the fall, I wrote a TV pilot episode for a show idea called Dig Dirt right now. That's the working title. And that's just a screenshot of that. And we took a little crew and cast out there and filmed a pilot episode that's almost done being edited, and we'll probably submit that to festivals. And so as far as zooming out is concerned, it's the zoom out of Stitch People is sort of working in tandem with the zoom out of Lizzie and Spencer, where like, hey, people are wanting to see more faces beyond just me. Stitch People as its own brand is really just really solidifying on its own, which means I can kind of zoom out and start doing kind of more of these side things, which is really exciting for me on a personal level. So it's
because it's all about creativity.
A win-win-win. Yeah, but I'm still gonna be designing a lot. I'm not like going anywhere, at least not in the immediate future.
If anything, you'll be designing more.
Because cat portraits. I'm not even a super cat person. I'd have a cat if he wasn't allergic. I'm definitely a dog person, but I just think cat portraits are so funny. So, cat portraits, literary portraits, we're doing it all. So I'm wondering if any of you have any questions. I will give you our kind of product schedule. This is another thing that we are super stoked about. I won't tell you exactly what we're doing, but we do have a release coming up during the Spring Fling. We have another pattern set release. And then we're going to have a number of this one's not news. We did our safari animals. We're doing jungle animals. So, but that one similarly, we're going to be releasing in smaller chunks instead of as one big kahuna of an ebook. We've also are working on a couple more logistical books. I will say that much. And then we've got a fun thing coming up in the fall that is a little bit different than any other Stitch People book we have done. I will just say that. So we've got definitely, that's its own book for sure. And then we've got 1.5 books for the summer. And then we've got a few of like our digital downloads. One really fun one for the Spring Fling that'll help you all flesh out it'll help you flesh out like your backgrounds and your scenes a little bit better. There's my little breadcrumb. And we'll be having breadcrumbs releasing breadcrumbs on Instagram as well. And then our fall one for Stitch People Day, we'll be releasing another book. And then we're going to be getting ready for a lot of our subscriptions to start in January. We're still going to add to the Stitch People library, just not as frequently because it's getting so niche. So definitely feel free to always write in info@stitchpeople.com and let us know, like, hey, I had an idea for a pattern book or patterns that, because we do keep track of it. And the more requests we get for certain things, the more we're like, oh, we've gotten this request from more than one person. You know, it's a dozen people want XYZ. So we we listen. So definitely email us your suggestions. We always want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Because again, if you weren't here, we wouldn't be here. And that's not lost on us. So thank you for being here and let us know what more we can do to assist you. Oh, I forgot a huge announcement that I didn't put on our slides. We're redoing our website.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, Spencer specifically has been redoing our website. We are hoping it will be done by the end of this quarter, but plan on the summertime. And it's going to make everything a lot easier.
Yes.
I can't believe I forgot to put that in the slides. So our new website, it'll be easier for you to like log into your account and see what you've got. And so it won't be its own app, but the site will at least remove some barriers. We're going to reorganize and like recategorize and retag all our products. So everything's really easy to find, because that's one of our big barriers is now that we have so many patterns, we have a hard time making sure everybody knows everything that we've got. I mean, even somebody posted Stitch People community like, oh, I really need a graduation cap and gown. Like, that's literally in the DIY book. But even that has 200 pages, so it's hard to, remember and know. So that's one of our biggest battles. So we're putting in a ton of really good categorization and search options in the new website. It's been, because we have so many little offerings and everybody, the average Stitch People customer will have, a handful of patterns. So we have a ton of order history, for a $5 pattern there, a $10 pattern there. And so just transferring all the order history to make sure that when we switch over to the new website, you can still log in and still have your entire order history and nothing gets lost in that process. That's just been, if I understand correctly, that's been the beast. But yeah, our new website will come this summer. So that's really fun.
I'm super excited about that one, actually.
And that's going to be what helps us run subscriptions. And
it'll feel like a big up level.
Yeah.
Because it will be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it'll make us look real good and feel real good too. So we got nothing sad to say about that. Spencer, do you have anything left to say?
No, but Jen just said she's excited for the future.
We are too.
Wisteria's super excited. We're really excited too.
It's nice to have clarity.
And honestly, on a bit of a personal note, like COVID has been tough for everybody,
for
obviously.
Everyone, yeah.
And we have, kind of like most people, retreated just a little bit into kind of ourselves and into our own projects and kind of what we're doing, and we frankly have kind of missed some of the interaction with the community and more of the one-on-one interaction with community members specifically. So this launching off of kind of Stitch People 2.0 almost, you could call it.
It's the next wave.
We're just so excited most of all excited for the connection.
Yeah.
And the community aspect of it all.
Yeah,
so.
and facilitating that for everyone else, not just us being able to connect to you, but helping everybody connect to each other. So yeah, that's because we are a kind community. That's our number two big value. So everything we can do to do that. So thank you all so much for your time tonight. So glad for all of you who could join. Appreciate everything that happens in the community. Appreciate all of the extraordinary things that you create with your hands and your minds and your hearts. It is, if I talk too much about it, I'm going to get choked up. So I will pull back from that line of chatting because I do not like to feel big emotions in a public setting. But without further ado, we shall bid you farewell. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So much gratitude always. And again, email us your suggestions. Email us your feedback and thoughts, info@stitchpeople.com. You'll probably get a response from Teresa or Nancy. They are awesome. And we look forward to the future with all of you.